What's up, friends? Syracuse Sports back at you here. Hope you're having a terrific summer. It's the middle of July. Hey, before you know it, football training camp will start, and we'll get closer and closer to students arriving back on campus and getting things back in the swing. But enjoy your summer in the meantime. Hope you're listening to this somewhere on the beach, as a matter of fact. And to do that, make sure you subscribe, follow on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you prefer to get your podcasts so you don't miss a darn thing. Listening to this podcast is better than reading a book on the beach. Some would argue maybe not, but it's there for you whenever you want. That's the beauty of having Syracuse Sports on demand. Excited about our guest today. It's Regy Thorpe. Regy is the new Syracuse women's lacrosse head coach. Of course, Regy was an All-American defenseman at Syracuse. Herkimer grad, Herkimer guy, so we got to acknowledge his time at Herkimer as well. We do speak briefly about that on the pod as well. But I am fascinated by the situation that Regy Thorpe walks into here. The previous coach was not fired. The previous coach did not retire. The previous coach just left for another job. And this is a 10-time Final Four program that Regy Thorpe, who spent 10 years as an assistant coach at Syracuse, helped building that reputation prior with Gary Gait from 2010 to 2019, takes over. If you're on the lot, the salesman is going to look at you with this card. He's right. Look, you're really getting a great deal on this thing. No joke, right? Regy Thorpe is being handed a program that has done everything but win a national championship. And it is arguably the program closest to winning a championship right there with Syracuse men's lacrosse, who, of course, got back to the Final Four for the first time in over a decade this year. Syracuse football was one win away from being in the ACC championship game, which potentially could have put it in the college football playoff, and people are fired up about Syracuse football for sure. Syracuse basketball's got some work to do. They've missed the NCAA tournament for 4 straight years. They're coming off a losing season, and looks like Adrian Autry has put together a roster that's capable of getting back to the tournament, but competing for a Final Four and a championship is still years away. Syracuse women's basketball, NIT, NCAA tournament, losing season. So kind of a mixed bag from Coach Felicia Leggett-Jack and company right now. Syracuse men's soccer won a national championship in 2022. The field hockey program has actually been pretty consistent in making the NCAA tournament and has had some success. But the program that is right there, that all it has to do to complete the circle and win a championship, is Syracuse women's lacrosse. So we talked to Regy Thorpe about how he plans to get Syracuse over that hump. He has not been shy about that expectation, what he's been doing on the recruiting circuit, who he's hearing from, taking over the job. Why is Regy known for these passionate pregame speeches and so much more? Great to catch up with Regy Thorpe, and we'll bring you that conversation here shortly here. But as a reminder that you, the great listeners of this podcast, or maybe they're not a listener of the podcast and you want to feature them anyway, can have your original music featured here on Syracuse Sports. We love to highlight original artists here, get the word out about them. We do have a lot of bands and artists that have connections to Syracuse and Central New York. Hey, it's a Syracuse pod, so they like to keep up on what's going on with Syracuse. You don't have to be, though, a Central New York related band to have your original music featured here on Syracuse Sports. This one happens to be a band based in Central New York, and they're great. They're called Youth Medium. All the info on Youth Medium can be found in the show notes. Check out their website to get all the links on how you can listen to their music. This is a great song called Alone. So we're going to play a little bit of it here, and then we'll play the song in its entirety at the end of the podcast. And just a reminder, we can do this for you. Get in touch. All the info is in the show notes on how you can get in touch with me and have your original music featured here on Syracuse Sports. Shout out to our Syracuse Sports Insiders as well. Being an insider gives you direct text message access to me anytime. Your thoughts, your opinions, your questions, your comments, things you want to hear on the pod, people you want to hear on the pod. Hey, shoot me a text. Let me know. We've been keeping you up to date on all the commitments in recruiting and football. There's a couple more to keep track of coming up here, so stay tuned on the Syracuse Sports Insider text line. Anything you guys want to know about Syracuse sports, you just want to shoot the breeze and talk SU sports, shoot me a text. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you direct text message access to me, breaking news first, and so much more, all right there on your phone. It's just $3.99 a month to be a Syracuse Sports Insider. You can try it free for 2 weeks, and all the info is at joinsubtext.com/Syracuse Sports. All right, let's hear a little bit of a loan from Youth Media, and then we're going to hear from the new Syracuse women's lacrosse head coach, Regy Thorpe. So, Regy, I'm prone to offer the response, just living the dream, when people ask me, how are things going, right? Well, you are living the dream. You came in and said that Syracuse women's lacrosse was your dream job. So how is that settling in that you have your dream job? You are living it, breathing it, and doing it now as we speak.
Yeah, it's been awesome. Amy and I to be back, home full time, and university that was fortunate enough to play for, and then able to coach for 10 years with Coach Gate. It's just been an awesome experience. Everyone's been so welcome to be back and supportive. So, and it's it's a lot of work ahead of us, but we're excited for the challenge.
You had a lot of friends and family at the press conference. I'm sure your phone's been buzzing ever since you got the job, but who are some people that you heard from that made you say, wow, it's great to hear from that person, or just really struck you as like, that's so cool that they reached out to me to say congratulations on this job?
Well, I think just, my mentors, especially Coach Werhum, Coach, Roy Simmons Jr., obviously Gary and the crew, but just, the alumni, it's been huge, to have the alumni support, over the years, and how excited they are. And then, quite honestly, just the players and the families, everyone's been so great. And, we're excited. We wish fall ball started, tomorrow, right? So we just to get on the field in there. So it's just been exciting. Everyone's been so supportive and excited, and just hope to meet their expectations. And a lot of work ahead of us, and working with Coach Caitlin and Coach Maggie have been awesome. We're getting things dialed in, and again, it's been a lot of work, but so excited for the opportunity.
Yeah, a lot to get to there, Regy, but you mentioned Coach Simmons. You mentioned a couple of Herkimer guys talking. Fair warning out there. Might be strolling down memory lane here for the Herkimer guys on the pod here. But you mentioned Coach Werhum, who is a terrific coach at Herkimer. Coach Simmons' record speaks for itself. What have you picked up from them in terms of coaching that maybe you implore in your job today?
I just think they all kind of bring something different to the table, right? Whether it's motivation, helping building confidence, being creative, but also just I think the motivation, kids got to be motivated, and they got to be excited to come to practice, excited about classes, and just the whole student athlete experience, where it's in the community, socially, on the field, in the classroom. So just really taking that whole student athlete approach and making it, hopefully, when a player leaves here, it's going to be the best, 4 years, 3 years, 2 years, 1 years of their life. And that's what it was for me playing for those coaches. And we hope to do that here.
How did Herkimer help your journey, Regy? I did the same thing. Mm-hmm. I went to community college, went to Herkimer, not too far from home. And man, when you're at a place like that, you get thrown right in the fire. Mm-hmm. You got to do it, right? You've only got a couple of years to really get yourself right to reach a goal going forward. For me, it was to get into media. For you, it was to get on track lacrosse-wise. What was that experience like for you, and how did Herkimer shape you into where you are now?
Yeah, just being that type of student athlete, right, and understanding the work that's takes in the routine for classes and tutors, and getting the academics, and then the lacrosse. It was unbelievable lacrosse there. super competitive. I think we had 16, 17 kids go Division I out of my senior year at Herkimer. So just to have a great lacrosse experience, but more importantly, just learn to be a student athlete, and then also just the lacrosse side was just so amazing too. Super competitive, and made the transition coming to Syracuse that much easier, because you were already playing with a very high level all-American kids that they're in junior college, and it made the transfer. Just at Syracuse, there was just more of those all-American type players. So it certainly prepped me on and off the field, and a ton to Herkimer.
Yeah, for our younger viewers out there, back in the day, Herkimer was it. Onondaga Community College certainly developed a dynasty. There's some other programs out there that have won championships and some excellent programs, but Herkimer was it for a while. And I always like to remind people, Regy, that it took a Herkimer guy in Chuck Wilbur to turn OCC around, right? Nothing against OCC, our fine institution here in Syracuse, but listen, Herc guy had to come in there and turn things around. I'm just saying, right? Those Herc guys out there doing good things.
Yeah, I mean, Chuck did an amazing job there, and another one of Coach Werhum's, former players that did an amazing job there, and just I mean, they crushed it for years. It was great seeing.
All right, yeah, we'll stop the walk down memory lane here. Regy and I could do a whole pod on Herkimer days, but had to get the Generals a little shout out there. You brought up the players and the enthusiasm that was out there, Regy. One thing that we heard through the process: current players on this team, alumni, both men's and women's alumni, really pushed for you and really campaigned for you to get this job. When you heard that through the process, and maybe you're still hearing from people that said that now that you've gotten the job, how does that make you feel?
Again, just the support's been it's been unbelievable. Life's a resume, right? So build a lot of relationships over the years, on and off the field, and just to have all the support of everyone, certainly makes going to work a little easier. But also, it really makes you want to work hard, because they're supportive, right? And you don't want to let them down, right? You don't want to let a teammate down. You don't want to let someone, whether it's alumni or old teammate, down. So just, again, we're excited, embracing the challenge here. We got a long road ahead of us, but just ready for fall ball to start.
You guys were not shy at the press conference about what the expectation is. It's to win a national championship. This program has been right there, just unfortunately hasn't taken that next step here. And Regy, you take over a program, like if we are on a car lot and it was me and you were buying the car that was Syracuse women's lacrosse, like, look, man, you're getting a great deal on this thing, right? The previous coach wasn't fired. The previous coach didn't retire. She just moved on to another job. You know as well as anybody that you have a well-oiled machine that you're taking on here. So how do you embrace that and match and meet that goal that you stated at that press conference? You feel this is a national championship caliber program.
Yeah, I think they got a great nucleus of players here, and I think you look at some of the returners coming in, and then just really focusing on some of the areas of growth that we have to do. We gotta shoot the ball better. We got to be more efficient. Less turnovers. But if you really break down the roster, it's a really good nucleus of core players returning, and then hopefully with a few kids through the transfer portal and good culture kids, and really hone in. But we got a long road ahead of us, but it's exciting for the staff, and I think it's exciting for the players, the parents, the alumni, the fans, to see what type of product we can put on the field, come February.
Regy, that's one thing I wanted to ask you about. One big difference between taking over this job now from your previous time at Syracuse, and one of the obvious answers is the transfer portal, right? I know we can't get into specifics quite yet, but it is a tool at your disposal. You can dip into that, find some very talented players to bring into Syracuse. But one thing about the portal is you can be selective. You can see what the resume is, what type of players that these particular players were at other schools. You can talk to coaches. You can really, not that you don't do that in recruiting, but you're doing it with a little bit more of an advantage because they've been at college for whatever is a year or two, sometimes 4. So how do you think the transfer portal and the modern era of where we're in college sports will help you achieve your goals at Syracuse?
Well, I think many coaches, when it first kind of, triggered, some years back, we were all kind of a little bit hesitant. And then, I think everyone kind of just flipped a switch that you'd probably be foolish not to go try to improve your roster, like a free agency to try to improve your roster. But it's certainly always, it's risky too, right? Because you gotta make sure you're finding the right, the right person, the right family to fit what culture you want and what your needs are. So, it's a lot more research on the kids. And with the COVID years being kind of behind us, so to speak, it's certainly more competitive too. So much like the recruiting, aspect of when you're, September 1st hits of their junior year. So I think the portals, it's each program does it a little bit different, but for us to have an opportunity to go out and evaluate a few kids and families that might be good fits for our current team, right? And can they fit in there? And we feel that we've are able to, or we identified a couple kids that we feel can help on and off the field and be part of Syracuse culture.
Regy, this is a strong alumni base out there, certainly at Syracuse. And you mentioned in one of your opening remarks that you want to re-engage those alums. How can they help you? What's the big thing that the former players can do to help Syracuse lacrosse? I mean, it could be what we're talking about. It could be an NIL donation. It could be a number of things, right? But when you ask them for help, what are you asking for?
Well, I think we got like a bucket of things, and Maggie and Coach Maggie and Coach Kalen have done a great job. We're framing up an email a couple weeks ago to the alumni and just for their support, and also, really to connect with the current team and connect some of the former alumni that maybe have been distanced a little bit. And, whether it's networking opportunities for our student athletes that can get maybe an intern opportunity or a job opportunity. But I think the networking and just and trying to connect the dots from the older alumni to the younger alumni to the current team. But we feel it's endless, right? We're going to have different committees, and whether it's a search committee as far as going out and finding older alumni and getting their right email and connect them, and then just identifying some weekends or opportunities that we can connect them with the current team and then connect everyone together. So we're just working on trying to build that bridge, back to the alumni and the players. And then, and we're excited about it. I mean, they're super excited. So we're framing up some things and more to come on that.
Regy, we talked with John Wildhack recently. My colleague Chris Carlson did. And one of the things he touched on was that women's lacrosse is a sport that might see some extra scholarships and, a commitment here in this new era that's out there. I'm curious what your conversations were like with John. And once you reached the point like, hey, this is happening and you were going to take over the job, what was his message to you about what the university is going to do to help the program?
Well, I think just the support, right? I mean, that was key going into this is knowing that the university is behind, not only lacrosse, but women's lacrosse. And they've been super, super supportive and giving us the tools to be competitive with the top teams. And so we're just excited of the support that they're going to provide us, and not only for current, but for the future as well.
Regy, you've got a strong coaching record of including here at Syracuse for a decade. You were just at Florida, which went to back-to-back Final Fours, and now you take over as a head coach. And you have a message for players. What is that message? If you play for Regy Thorpe, this is what I expect of you.
Well, I think just, everyone works hard these days, right? And I think that, years ago was I work hard, I should play or should win, right? And just everyone's doing it, right? It's just these student athletes are just unbelievable players. They're doing the work in the video, in the scouting reports, on the scout team. So I think just doing above and beyond what successful teams do. So I think the message of this team from day one is, we're kind of taking this to 0-0 mentality, right? Whether you played last year, whether you didn't play last year, be on the scout team, it's a clean slate. The players got to feel the coaching staff out, and the coaches have to feel them out as far as where everyone's going to fit and what role they're going to have. So we're excited for the fall and kind of have that 0-0 mentality and get to work.
Regy, one thing that we've heard from some people that have played for you is your speeches. Your pregame speeches can get pretty fired up. Where does that come from? You touched on it earlier that motivation is important, right? But is that just somebody that played the game and the passion comes through when you're about to play? Do you feel like that's a strategy that you want motivated players out there? Where do these, win one for the Gipper type speeches come from you?
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I think over the years with Coach Werhum and my wrestling high school coach, Mike Fruit, and Coach Simmons Jr., they always, would have some type of pregame, and they all were a little different, but just kind of just, feel in the locker room, the warm-ups, where we're at, and whether they need a little something extra, to get the team going. But I don't know. It's just something over the years that we've done, and it's the kids seem to like it, and it's just been kind of like a tradition, and we usually flip it around with the coaching staff a little bit, and each game a coach or a player might do it. So sometimes it's the players, sometimes it's me, sometimes it's the fellow coaching staff. So it's just kind of part of a tradition and kind of routine that the kids, I think, are comfortable with, and they like it, and we'll continue to do it.
You coached with Gary Gait for 10 years, of course. You've known Gary through the years, and now you get to work with him again. What kind of resource can Gary Gait be for you right across the hall there and having him around?
It's huge, right? I mean, it's huge, and he's been so supportive over the years, and really is the reason why I got into coaching women's lacrosse, and fell in love with it. So it's just to have him as a resource to not only bounce off the business side of where where we're going with the whole NCAA landscape, but also just the lacrosse end, and being able to scheme with him and talk through things with him, and to have him as a resource is just, it's going to give us a leg up.
And Regy, I wanted to close with this, just some X's and O's, if you will, in the game. There's been some rule changes proposed out there, and look, I love the game. I played the game, but I can watch the sport and kind of grab my red pen and say, we can trim some fat here in terms of time and some things that have maybe bogged down the game a little bit, both sides of the ball, by the way, men's and women's lacrosse. Mm-hmm. But one thing that I've just never understood in women's lacrosse, because to me it wastes time, is the stick check after every single goal. Yeah. It's just not necessary. It's outdated. I've covered hundreds of games, Regy. I think I've seen that be a penalty once or twice in my entire life. Mm. So to see that was proposed, let's just say that put a smile on my face. There were some other rule changes that are out there. So as somebody that's been around the game and is about to become a head coach and can have a voice in how this game is played, what did you think of the proposed rules?
I think that the stick drop after a goal, it's certainly I think for the casual fan watching, they're like, why are they dropping their stick after a goal? But I think at the end of the day, they're trying to speed up the game from mm-hmm. Trying to limit the time back up to the draw for the next draw whistle, and the stick drop as well. I mean, I think they're trying to to just be able to speed it up, and now with the video review being in effect, that's usually, each team gets 2 per game. So, trying to factor in some of those, that timing where if they can cut out a couple phases of a few of the rules and make it a little more flowing, because with the video reviews, the games have been taken a little bit, probably longer than normal, but it's been awesome to have video reviews. So hats off to the committee for approving that, last year and making, everyone. And then, it certainly has been a big step for women's lacrosse, and excited about it. But then I think cutting out a couple other things will be great for our game.
I think it'll really help. And it's the fastest game on 2 feet, right? And when I see things that bog down that expression, I got to speak up about them. And the last time I felt like it was not, and I think of a Syracuse Maryland NCAA tournament game that was 6-5, and Maryland stalling the ball, and we're just throwing it around. I'm watching this like, this is not lacrosse. You need to fix this, and they did. I didn't get quite that far with what we're talking about here, but I feel like these are 3 changes they can make that'll just remind us that it is the fastest game on 2 feet. So I was pretty happy to see those things happen, and that the powers that be in the sport recognize that and are going to accelerate the game a little bit. So that's exciting. We're excited to see what you do as the head coach at Syracuse as well, Regy. Congratulations once again. Always great to talk lacrosse with a Herkimer guy. I know we'll be doing it again soon, but really appreciate you hopping on with us today here on Syracuse Sports, my friend.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you, Brett.
Thanks to Regy Thorpe for joining us here on Syracuse Sports. Great to get his perspective on how Syracuse women's lacrosse is going to get over that hump and win the national championship. In the meantime, a Central New York guy living the dream in his new dream job. It's a dream to be a Syracuse Sports Insider. Hope you guys have signed up. You're getting direct text messages from me. You're sending direct text messages to me. Breaking news, opinion, analysis, the whole deal. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you breaking news first when we have it, gives you direct text message access to me, what you want me to ask Syracuse players and coaches, what you want me to talk about here on the pod, who you want to have on the pod. You know, it's been a while. You know what, guys? Maybe we should do an Axe Brent anything pod coming up. Anything you want to know about Syracuse sports. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you the opportunity to just send me a text anytime on what you're on your mind when it comes to Syracuse sports. It's just $3.99 a month to be a Syracuse Sports Insider, and you can try it free for 2 weeks. So do that, see what it's all about, and then spread the word on being a Syracuse Sports Insider. Thanks for subscribing to the pod, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you prefer to get your pods. Please subscribe and follow so when a new episode of Syracuse Sports pops up, you won't miss a thing. We've got a couple more shows coming up before we take a small summer break. We've got another recruiting show coming up with the buzz continuing to build from Calvin Russell, a national recruiting analyst from ESPN, is going to be on the pod soon, and got a couple other things we'll be doing. And then we're going to take a short summer break, and then bam, before you know it, it'll be Syracuse football training camp, and we'll be right in the throes of it, and football will be just around the corner. I know you want to enjoy your summer. I'm not rushing anything, right? But let's face it, guys, before you know it, it's going to be August 30th. It's going to be Syracuse, Tennessee in Atlanta, and off we go. Thanks for hanging on the pod. Much appreciated. Thanks to our friends at Youth Medium. We're going to feature their song Alone to round out the pod here. And again, if you want your original music featured here on Syracuse Sports, just get in touch. All the info is in the show notes.
In my soul.